The ninth house or Dharmabhava, Philosophy, Purpose, Truth, Cancer Rising Part 1. The sentiment that must find structure. Cancer Rising walks through life guided by feeling, memory, and emotional instinct. Governed by the moon, these natives are deeply impressionable, drawn to nurture, protect, and find meaning through connection. Their default lens is intimate and intuitive, preferring the known, the familial, the emotionally secure. But the ninth house, Dharmabhava, brings them into Pisces, a sign ruled by Jupiter, and Ketu in classical traditions, that dissolves boundaries and expands consciousness into spiritual, symbolic realms. This is where emotional intuition must evolve into spiritual vision, where nurturing turns into surrender, and where the personal must bow to the universal. Pisces in the ninth house lifts the moon-ruled Cancer native into a dreamscape of metaphysics, mysticism, and transcendent belief. The desire to belong now extends beyond family into cosmic community. They are no longer caretakers of the home alone, but seekers of divine resonance. This house invites them to trade inherited truths for intuitive revelation. It is the journey from ancestry to archetype. Pisces in the ninth, the call to trust the infinite. Pisces infuses the ninth house with softness, subtlety, and spiritual longing. For Cancer Rising, this manifests as a yearning to understand life not just through philosophy, but through direct inner knowing, dreams, symbols, synchronicities, and soul memory. These natives may be drawn to devotional paths, healing arts, mythic traditions, or esoteric disciplines. Their Dharma is not constructed, it is felt. At its best, this placement fosters deep compassion, a natural affinity for mystical or healing vocations, and belief systems that emphasize unity and surrender. But its challenge lies in the lack of structure. Faith can become fantasy. Ideals can float without anchoring. The native must learn to trust intuition without abandoning discernment. Jupiter as Lord, wisdom through wholeness. Jupiter rules this ninth house, adding optimism, benevolence, and spiritual generosity to the Cancer Rising's belief landscape. If Jupiter is strong, they are gifted with inner guidance, teachers who show up through dreams, or serendipitous learning that shapes their Dharma. They may become spiritual counselors, poets, or wanderers who carry wisdom like water in cupped hands. If Jupiter is afflicted, however, they may escape into idealism, cling to victim narratives disguised as faith, or avoid structured learning in favor of emotional comfort. They may believe in everything or nothing, depending on how safe or seen they feel. Their journey is to recognize that spiritual truth does not always feel good, but it heals. That Dharma is not about emotional safety, it is about soulful surrender, and that real wisdom includes shadow, sacrifice, and silence. The ninth house teaches Cancer Rising that personal meaning must expand into spiritual purpose. They are meant to evolve from emotionally driven choices to soul-aligned action. This does not mean abandoning feeling, but refining it as a compass. Teachers for these natives often appear through emotional crisis, loss, or mysterious encounters. Their Dharma may begin in pain, but opens into profound connection with the divine. The same sensitivity that once bound them to their past now becomes the vessel for universal compassion. Activation years and turning points. The ninth house activates for Cancer Rising at ages 9, 21, 33, 45, 57, 69, and 81. These years bring shifts in belief, spiritual awakenings, or journeys into unknown realms, literal or metaphysical. At 21 or 33, they may leave behind inherited values to embrace paths of healing, service, or surrender. At 45 or 57, they may become guides themselves, those who translate emotion into prayer and pain into wisdom. These turning points often demand faith with no guarantee, where the Cancer native must trust their heart not just to feel, but to know. From home to horizon. Ultimately, the ninth house asks Cancer Rising to let their love move outward, to hold space not just for family, but for the world. Pisces here transforms the caretaker into the channel, the feeler into the healer. It invites them to soften into spaciousness and to discover that true belonging lies not in the past, but in the infinite. This is where memory becomes myth, where nurturing becomes universal, and where Cancer Rising, guided by emotion, learns to trust the invisible river of grace that flows beneath all things. The ninth house or Dharmabhava, Philosophy, Purpose, Truth, Cancer Rising, Part 2. 8 most soul-shaping conjunctions in Pisces, where feeling must trust, faith and emotion must find its ocean. For Cancer Rising, the 9th house rests in Pisces, a water sign of surrender, symbolism, and transcendence. Governed by Jupiter and classically co-ruled by Ketu, Pisces invites the moon-ruled Cancer native to swim beyond the shores of familial security and into the vast sea of intuitive truth. Here, Dharma is not systematized, it is felt. The path is not built, it is revealed. These 8 conjunctions in Pisces dissolve boundaries and awaken the spiritual compass. Each one asks the Cancer Rising native to trade emotional familiarity for soulful faith, to feel their way into purpose. Jupiter and Venus, devotional grace or romanticized belief. This elegant conjunction blends spiritual abundance with heart-centered values. For Cancer Rising, it supports a loving connection to art, spirituality, and universal compassion. If benefic, it creates the healer, the mystic artist, or the devotional philosopher. If afflicted, it may lead to fantasy-based beliefs, excessive idealism, or a tendency to conflate emotional need with spiritual truth. Growth begins when the native learns to love without clinging and believe without escaping. Jupiter and Ketu, detached wisdom or spiritual fog. This ethereal pairing magnifies detachment, often bringing karmic grace or a quiet sense of knowing. For Cancer Rising, it may give subtle intuition, spiritual clarity from past lives, or moments of divine discontent. If benefic, it produces a soul who sees through illusion and teaches from silence. If afflicted, it may cause vagueness in belief, avoidance of structure, or a passive relationship with destiny. Dharma matures when they anchor inner knowing with real-world application. Sun and Jupiter, radiant faith or ego in devotion. This majestic conjunction radiates optimism and spiritual leadership. For Cancer Rising, it can generate charisma in healing or religious spaces, and a need to live a life guided by principles. If benefic, it grants warmth, hope, and the ability to guide others through storms. If afflicted, it may inflate moral superiority or create dependency on external approval for spiritual worth. Evolution begins when they realize that spiritual light is meant to serve, not shine for applause. Sun and Neptune, or Ketu, inspired identity or dissolving self. This deeply mystical pairing softens ego and opens the self to divine influence. For Cancer Rising, it brings a spiritualized sense of identity, often shaped through sacrifice, dreams, or intuition. If benefic, it supports visionaries, channelers, and poetic healers. If afflicted, it can cause confusion around purpose or spiritual escapism. Dharma strengthens when they embrace their role as a vessel, not the source, where identity becomes devotion. Moon and Jupiter, emotional belief or faith through feeling. This gentle conjunction blends the lunar instinct with Jupiter's wisdom. For Cancer Rising, it brings a natural inclination toward nurturing spiritual traditions or belief systems that feel like home. If benefic, it fosters inner peace, maternal guidance, and intuitive faith. If afflicted, it may cause emotional dependence on beliefs or attachment to comforting illusions. The key lesson: faith is not about reassurance, it's about resonance. Venus and Neptune, artistic vision or unrealistic dharma. This dreamy conjunction opens the heart to beauty as a spiritual path. For Cancer Rising, it may bring artistic gifts, a longing for divine union, or enchantment with mystical philosophies. If benefic, it creates the spiritual romantic, the compassionate designer, or the poetic truth seeker. If afflicted, it may lead to delusion in love, blurred boundaries in spiritual practice, or escapist aesthetics. Purpose stabilizes when they create beauty that heals, not seduces. Mars and Jupiter, brave faith or directionless idealism. This dynamic pair activates the spiritual warrior. For Cancer Rising, it can stir enthusiasm for pilgrimage, teaching, or fighting for the underdog. If benefic, it creates action aligned with moral clarity, where purpose fuels deeds. If afflicted, it may cause overzealous evangelism or the pursuit of abstract ideals without follow-through. Dharma ignites when passion is surrendered to wisdom, and courage is grounded in compassion. Mercury and Jupiter, intuitive learning or confused philosophy. This cerebral yet expansive combination brings the mind into contact with higher truths. For Cancer Rising, it supports imaginative writing, spiritual teaching, or intuitive logic. If benefic, it produces the soulful intellectual or mystic scholar. If afflicted, it may lead to scattered beliefs, exaggeration, or naive speech. The path forward lies in merging intellect with heart, where knowledge becomes a bridge to meaning. In summary, Pisces in the ninth house asks Cancer rising to feel their way into faith. These conjunctions do not solidify belief, they dissolve the walls around it. This is a Dharma that arises from dream, grief, intuition, and inspiration, not law or legacy. It is shaped by soul memory, inner tides, and spiritual surrender. This is where the emotional nurturer becomes the spiritual devotee, where home expands into the cosmos, and where the Cancer rising learns that the ultimate belonging is not in a place, but in divine presence. Dharma is no longer tradition, it is trust. No longer a system, it is a sea, and they at last are ready to swim. The ninth house, or Dharmabhava, philosophy, purpose, truth. Scorpio rising, part the intensity that must discover meaning. Scorpio rising enters life with emotional depth, penetrating focus, and a drive to transform. Governed by Mars and Ketu in classical thought, these natives are naturally tuned to the unseen, the hidden, the complex. Their approach to life is private yet powerful, often led by instinct, resistance, and a desire to get to the bottom of things. But the ninth house, Dharmabhava, opens into Cancer, ruled by the moon, where softness replaces strategy and inner sensitivity becomes the compass. This is where the Scorpio's intensity must give way to receptivity, where truth is not uncovered by control, but felt through trust. Cancer in the ninth house invites Scorpio rising to find meaning through emotional intelligence, empathy, and nurturing traditions. This is not a house of distant philosophy. It is an intimate sanctuary. Belief for these natives is not abstract, it is visceral. Their Dharma is not written in intellectual manifestos, but woven into stories, rituals, memories, and maternal wisdom passed through generations. Cancer in the ninth, the Dharma of feeling and belonging. Cancer brings intuitive depth and emotional resonance to the ninth house. For Scorpio rising, this means their spiritual path is guided by what feels right, not what sounds logical. They are drawn to belief systems that protect, nourish, and emotionally anchor them. This may manifest as devotion to the family religion, loyalty to ancestral traditions, or the urge to create spiritual safety for others. Their relationship to philosophy is deeply subjective, colored by emotional experience and personal symbolism. They often believe in what they've felt rather than what they've read. Teachers appear as caretakers, mothers, spiritual protectors, or those who comfort rather than instruct. Their journey toward truth is not linear, it is tidal. Moon as Lord, from instinct to inner guiding light. With the moon ruling this house, Dharma becomes a process of emotional maturation. If the moon is strong, Scorpio rising natives become protectors of wisdom, those who share truth with warmth, grace, and intuitive accuracy. They may guide others through storytelling, counseling, or nurturing philosophies that heal rather than critique. If the moon is afflicted, however, their belief systems may become emotionally reactive. They may cling to the past, get stuck in nostalgia, or mistake mood for meaning. They may reject teachings that don't feel emotionally validating, even if they are necessary for growth. The lesson lies in learning that the heart's truth is valid, but must be refined by awareness, not driven by emotional tides. From control to compassionate knowing, the ninth house teaches Scorpio rising that truth cannot be seized, it must be received. That wisdom doesn't always hide in complexity, it often lives in gentleness. While Scorpio often mistrusts softness, Cancer in the ninth shows them that vulnerability is sacred. That emotion is not weakness, but a compass toward Dharma. This house invites them to heal the relationship between power and feeling, between their inner protector and their inner child. Their philosophical path may lead them toward nurturing others, advocating for emotional well-being, or becoming spiritual matriarchs, patriarchs within their community. Activation years and turning points. The ninth house activates for Scorpio rising at ages 9, 21, 33, 45, 57, 69, 81. These years bring emotional awakenings around belief, spiritual identity, and inherited meaning. At 21 or 33, they may leave behind rigid dogma in favor of a path that feels like home. At 45 or 57, they may step into roles as protectors of a belief lineage, intuitive counselors, or emotional guides. These turning points often ask them to stop intellectualizing transformation and instead surrender to its emotional dimension, to soften their grip on spiritual control and allow truth to rise like the tide, not crash like a storm. from obsession to emotional wisdom. Ultimately, Cancer in the ninth house teaches Scorpio rising that the deepest truths are not those uncovered through force, but those embraced through trust. That belonging is a sacred part of belief. That Dharma flows through intuition, not interrogation. This is the journey where the alchemist becomes the nurturer, where the seeker of secrets becomes a guardian of meaning, and where Scorpio rising discovers the greatest transformation isn't in mastering the world, it's in learning to feel it with reverence. The ninth house, or Dharmabhava, philosophy, purpose, truth, Scorpio rising part 2. 8 most defining conjunctions in Cancer, where depth must soften and truth must be felt, not forced. For Scorpio rising, the ninth house opens in Cancer, a sign of memory, emotion, and nurturing sensitivity. Here, the instinct to control, penetrate, and transform is tempered by the moon's call to trust, care, and protect. These natives are not meant to conquer truth through investigation. They are meant to receive it through intuition, inheritance, and the tides of emotion. These 8 conjunctions in Cancer become emotional crucibles, shaping how Scorpio rising forms beliefs, connects to teachers, and softens their inner edges in service of something larger than power. Moon and Jupiter, emotional wisdom or faith through attachment. This generous conjunction blends intuitive knowing with expansive faith. For Scorpio rising, it brings a dharmic path rooted in care, tradition, and emotional generosity. If benefic, it creates nurturing mentors, spiritual protectors, or ethical counselors. If afflicted, it may lead to emotional idealism, belief tied to security, or clinging to comforting but outdated truths. Growth occurs when they choose devotion over dependency and recognize that emotional safety is not the same as truth. Moon and Saturn, steady faith or emotional suppression. This heavy yet stabilizing pair binds duty with emotional responsibility. For Scorpio rising, it may create a serious, even solemn view of spirituality, where Dharma is tied to discipline, ancestry, or karmic weight. If benefic, it yields reliable mentors, strong moral endurance, and leadership and emotional integrity. If afflicted, it may block vulnerability, create guilt around intuition, or foster spiritual fatigue. The evolution begins when they allow feeling to coexist with structure, rather than be erased by it. Moon and Venus, devotional beauty or sentimental belief. This graceful conjunction nurtures faith through love, art, and emotional resonance. For Scorpio rising, it can lead to beautifully embodied spirituality through rituals, aesthetics, or relationships that feel spiritually protective. If benefic, it supports gentle teachers, devotional artists, and compassionate guides. If afflicted, it may romanticize belief, attach to cultural nostalgia, or confuse emotional longing with spiritual truth. Dharma stabilizes when they learn to love without clinging and serve without expectation. Moon and Rahu, hungry intuition or emotional confusion. This unpredictable combination intensifies emotional need and karmic craving. For Scorpio rising, it may manifest as obsession with spiritual security, foreign traditions, or unusual emotional philosophies. If benefic, it can create visionaries who channel new forms of nurturing wisdom. If afflicted, it may cause emotional turbulence, attachment to mystical illusion, or manipulative belief systems. Dharma matures when they distinguish genuine intuition from unconscious desire and ground their faith in presence, not projection. Moon and Ketu, quiet knowing or emotional detachment. This subtle conjunction often brings past life wisdom and emotional aloofness. For Scorpio rising, it may draw them toward mysticism, silence, or traditions of solitude and introspection. If benefic, it supports intuitive healers, monks, or guides who speak through presence more than doctrine. If afflicted, it can result in emotional numbness, rejection of nurturing structures, or confusion around belief belonging. The lesson lies in learning that detachment is not absence, it is sacred spaciousness. Sun and Moon, ego-emotion alignment or identity tension. This core-defining conjunction unites the inner and outer self. For Scorpio rising, it brings powerful clarity and belief when the self and soul speak the same language. If benefic, it creates teachers who embody what they feel and lead through emotional authenticity. If afflicted, it may cause identity conflict, volatile shifts in purpose, or a need for emotional validation in spiritual roles. Purpose stabilizes when they stop seeking approval and start following their own intuitive compass. Sun and Jupiter, noble protection or self-righteous care. This expansive pair empowers spiritual leadership with warmth and generosity. For Scorpio Rising, it can manifest as dharmic guardianship, those who fight for emotional justice or serve as protectors of moral tradition. If benefic, it brings moral charisma, generosity, and ability to inspire belief through emotional resonance. If afflicted, it may lead to patronizing care, spiritual egoism, or belief systems that mask control as compassion. Dharma flourishes when they choose humility and service over authority and ideology. Mercury and Moon, emotional intelligence or sentimental reasoning. This thoughtful conjunction marries intellect and feeling. For Scorpio Rising, it supports gentle philosophical inquiry, emotionally intelligent speech, and the ability to articulate belief with tenderness. If benefic, it creates counselors, intuitive teachers, and articulate spiritual writers. If afflicted, it may lead to overthinking emotions, rationalizing mood as truth, or projecting feelings onto belief systems. The path forward is in learning to think with the heart, while still checking the pulse of clarity. In summary, Cancer in the 9th house calls Scorpio Rising to feel their way into truth. These conjunctions mark moments when the emotional body becomes the vessel of higher knowledge, not through force, but through surrender. Here, Dharma is mothered into them, not mastered. It is remembered in the bones, not memorized from books. This is the house where the strategist becomes the nurturer, where belief is not declared, it is felt, wept, held. Where Scorpio Rising, forged in intensity, finds their greatest transformation in the quiet warmth of faith, care, and emotional resonance. Because in the end, for them, the deepest truth is not what's hidden, but what heals. The 9th house, or Dharmabhava, philosophy, purpose, truth, Pisces Rising, Part 1, the sensitivity that must find precision. Pisces Rising begins life with imagination, emotional permeability, and a deep connection to the unseen. Ruled by Jupiter and classically co-ruled by Ketu, these natives are naturally inclined toward spiritual surrender, artistic depth, and mystic longing. They move through life guided more by feelings and inner symbolism than by fixed form or logic. But the 9th house, Dharmabhava, falls in Scorpio, ruled by Mars and co-ruled by Ketu, a sign that demands depth, psychological courage, and uncompromising intensity. This is where the dreamer must become the investigator, where spiritual fluidity must dive into emotional truth, shadow work, and karmic complexity. Scorpio in the 9th house challenges Pisces Rising to refine their spiritual ideals through confrontation with truth. No more floating in abstract universality. This is the terrain of transformation, where philosophical growth requires inner death and rebirth. Their belief systems must pass through emotional fire. Their dharma is not linear or light. It is forged in crisis, secrecy, loyalty, and the courage to endure the unknown. Scorpio in the 9th, the dharma of inner alchemy. Scorpio injects psychological intensity and karmic responsibility into the 9th house. For Pisces Rising, this means that meaning is not found in outer dogma, it's earned through personal reckoning. These natives often experience Dharma as a process of emotional unraveling, where life challenges break open the false self to reveal a deeper truth. Belief is rarely taught to them. It is uncovered through betrayal, catharsis, or loss. They may be drawn to occult studies, depth psychology, tantric traditions, or transformative spiritual paths that embrace death, sexuality, and power. They are not meant to follow shallow moralities. They are meant to excavate truth in its rawest, most elemental forms. Their dharma may involve taboo, secrecy, or the hidden, but always in service of soul integration. Mars as Lord, from instinct to sacred will. With Mars ruling this house and Ketu co-ruling, Dharma becomes a battlefield of the soul. If Mars is strong, Pisces Rising navigates their philosophy with fearless truth-seeking, intensity, and loyalty to their inner compass. They may become spiritual protectors, healers of trauma, or initiates of mystery traditions. If Mars is afflicted, it may manifest as fear of surrender, crisis-driven dogma, or aggression disguised as righteousness. Their growth lies in moving from emotional reactivity to intentional healing. They must learn that true strength is not in the power to control, but in the will to transform with consciousness. Ketu's influence here strips away borrowed belief, forcing them to surrender what they once trusted to uncover a more primal, timeless Dharma. From surrender to sacred strategy. The 9th house teaches Pisces Rising that compassion alone is not enough. That mystical longing must be matched with emotional discernment. Scorpio here asks them to descend into their karma, their secrets, their soul wounds, so they can rise with clarity. This is not a philosophical path of airy reflection, but one of sacred confrontation. Teachers may come in the form of crisis, death, illness, or sexual awakening. Truth may emerge not from scripture, but from standing in the ashes of illusion. And still, the Pisces rising learns to see divinity even in the dark. Activation years and turning points. The ninth house activates for Pisces rising at ages 9, 21, 33, 45, 57, 69, and 81. These years often bring intense spiritual or emotional reckoning, life-altering journeys, shadow work, or the dismantling of inherited beliefs. At 21 or 33, they may step into deeper occult or healing studies, confront ancestral patterns, or experience crisis that reshapes their truth. At 45 or 57, they may become powerful spiritual guides, those who've walked the valley of transformation and returned to serve. Each of these years strips away more of the false and brings them closer to their soul's authentic knowledge, not of bliss alone, but of wholeness. From compassion to coherence. Ultimately, Scorpio in the ninth house teaches Pisces rising that real spirituality must include the shadow. That empathy must be paired with emotional intelligence. That Dharma is not escape. It is alchemical engagement. This is the path where the mystic becomes the truth teller, where spiritual softness finds backbone, and where Pisces rising, always inclined to surrender, learns that the deepest liberation comes through conscious confrontation with the mystery they once tried to transcend. The ninth house, or Dharmabhava, philosophy, purpose, truth, Pisces rising, part 8 most defining conjunctions in Scorpio, where surrender must face power and truth emerges from emotional depth. For Pisces rising, the ninth house unfolds in Scorpio, a Mars-ruled realm of secrecy, transformation, and emotional intensity. Here, the dreamy, empathetic Pisces native is challenged to stop floating and start feeling their way through the fire. Scorpio doesn't allow vague spiritual ideals. It demands authenticity through emotional courage, karmic reckoning, and deep psychological inquiry. These 8 conjunctions in Scorpio mark phases where belief is not built, but reborn. Each one pierces illusion and draws truth out from under layers of sentiment, fantasy, and fear. For Pisces rising, Dharma is not given. It's claimed through descent and conscious transformation. Mars and Mercury, sharp intuition or spiritual interrogation. This conjunction merges action with speech, will with intellect. For Pisces rising, it creates a probing, strategic mind capable of dissecting spiritual systems, psychological patterns, or karmic truths. If benefic, it fosters powerful communicators of esoteric wisdom, trauma-aware teachers, or spiritual tacticians. If afflicted, it may lead to manipulative rhetoric, mental intensity that overrides intuition, or verbal weaponization of beliefs. Dharma clarifies when they use sharp thought, not to cut, but to heal. Mars and Venus, erotic devotion or desire-laced belief. This passionate pairing fuses drive with value, desire with intimacy. For Pisces rising, it can manifest as spiritual longing expressed through sexuality, or as a deep need to merge soulfully with those who reflect their hidden truths. If benefic, it produces tantric initiates, devotional lovers, or alchemical artists. If afflicted, it may confuse obsession with destiny, use intimacy as a control tactic, or idealize emotional entanglement as sacred union. Evolution begins when they transmute desire into devotion and power into grace. Mars and Ketu, karmic fire or detached confrontation. This intense conjunction often manifests as inner warfare, past life memory igniting present moment battle. For Pisces rising, it can bring dharmic courage to cut cords, face generational pain, or act with fearless detachment. If benefic, it grants precision in releasing false philosophies, rapid transformation, or spiritual minimalism. If afflicted, it may result in angry detachment, spiritual pride, or ghosting difficult emotional truths. Dharma matures when they learn that disconnection is not mastery, conscious release is. Sun and Mars, purpose through power or moral force. This fiery conjunction places strong identity in Dharma through transformation. For Pisces rising, it fuels a will to lead others through depth, those who carry light into the shadow. If benefic, it creates spiritual warriors, trauma survivors turned teachers, or powerful truth bearers. If afflicted, it may turn belief into control, or attach ego to being the one who knows the dark. Growth happens when they realize that true strength is silent and inner power doesn't need to dominate. It transmutes. Sun and Mercury, intuitive logic, or ego and ideology. This cerebral blend highlights the need to speak truth that has been lived. For Pisces Rising, it can give voice to unspoken beliefs or illuminate unconscious patterns through teaching or writing. If benefic, it supports trauma-informed thinkers, mystic commentators, or intuitive philosophers. If afflicted, it can turn inner knowing into ego righteousness or use knowledge to hide vulnerability. Dharma aligns when they stop trying to explain everything and start embodying what they already know. Venus and Jupiter, devotional wisdom or sentimental morality. This graceful conjunction brings heart and soul together in the space of belief. For Pisces Rising, it elevates their emotional truth into ethical, compassionate guidance. If benefic, it produces wise lovers, spiritually generous counselors, or creators of beauty born from grief and rebirth. If afflicted, it may romanticize philosophy, cling to ideals that preserve emotional comfort, or resist depth out of fear of loss. Dharma strengthens when they trust that what breaks their heart can also open it to higher wisdom. Mercury and Ketu, subtle intellect or wordless knowing. This psychic and often minimalist combination favors intuitive logic, silence as a teacher, and belief rooted in energetic memory. For Pisces Rising, it may bring sudden insight, attraction to occult knowledge, or discomfort with formal education. If benefic, it supports those who channel knowledge from deep inner silence, healers, poets, or spiritual hermits. If afflicted, it may cause difficulty expressing faith, detachment from dialogue, or intellectual avoidance of feeling. They evolve when they learn to speak again, not loudly, but precisely after integration. Mercury and Rahu, obsessive analysis or transformative expression. This mentally charged conjunction heightens intellectual hunger and psychological curiosity. For Pisces Rising, it can draw them toward taboo subjects, conspiracy philosophies, or metaphysical thought. If benefic, it creates powerful investigators of Dharma, those who rewrite spiritual codes for modern transformation. If afflicted, it may result in over-intellectualization, paranoia, or obsession with being right about unseen truths. Dharma stabilizes when they use language not to expose, but to empower. In summary, Scorpio in the 9th house teaches Pisces Rising that truth must be felt through fire. These conjunctions ignite the slow, painful, sacred alchemy of turning belief into embodiment, not through books, but through crisis, confrontation, and courage. Dharma isn't something they dream. It's something they emerge from, like phoenixes born through the shadows. This is where the empath becomes the guide, where surrender meets strategy, and where Pisces Rising, long attuned to divine escape, learns that real liberation comes only after they've walked, fully present, through the darkest gate to light.